How you doing, guys? I'm the Beer Devil. Welcome to my channel. In today's episode of Vegan Dingleberries, we're going to be dismantling a recent video by Ask Yourself and exposing Isaac's apologetics level sophistry in which Dum Dum reinforces a double standard in a vain attempt to criticize BBC morning talk show host Piers Morgan for calling out said ideological double standard that he has witnessed coming from vegans. Without further ado, let's dive right into this fuckery and hear it straight from the dipshit vegan's throat hole.
I'd assume virtually everyone who's been vegan for a long time has seen carnists call vegans hypocrites for not going to extreme lengths to avoid harming animals. Recently,
Fuck. He didn't even make it 8 seconds in without being a disingenuous piece of shit. Extreme measures? Really, Isaac? Not stuffing your gullet with bread is considered extreme? Motherfucker, do you know what a straw man is? Or what the word conflation means?
Piers Morgan, the well-known vegan wrecking host of Good Morning Britain, seen here spitting out a Greg's vegan sausage roll,
Who gives a fuck? Also, not an argument against the valid critique of the moral double standard commonly perpetrated by vegans.
has taken to this brand of criticism.
Now, how many of you eat bread? A serious question.
Yeah, we all eat bread.
You all eat bread. So you're aware that how bread gets made, right?
Yeah.
Wheat crops and all that kind of thing. Ladybirds, bugs, things. Mice, rats, all these other little creatures that are in the crop, they get destroyed in the production of wheat crops, right? So that you guys can munch your bread. Tell me the difference, ideologically, between me wanting a Christmas turkey, right, and you guys eating bread, which you know involves the slaughter of millions of young critters.
Now that's just being outright dishonest, Isaac. Why didn't you play the little nitwit vegan SJW's response to Pierce's question? Could it be the fact that she dodged it like the plague and had to be rescued by a Captain Save-A-Ho? Nah, that couldn't be it, right?
It's about respecting others and
Do you eat bread? Do you eat bread? Do you eat bread?
I eat bread, yes.
Right, you're aware that in the process of wheat manufacture and bread making, that literally billions of insects get murdered.
I'm not saying that vegans are perfect.
But you're very concerned from a religious point of view. I mean, these are sacred animals that have been murdered so you can eat bread.
He seems
Another vegan dodging the question, and this one claims to worship animals as gods. I'm not kidding. She really says this. Pierce didn't make any claim that vegans are supposed to be perfect. He's legitimately asking vegans to explain the glaring ideological double standard. Why is it that if they believe it is morally wrong to kill animals for food, then why do they believe it's not wrong to needlessly murder sentient beings for their own personal pleasure? I'll provide links to both interviews in the description so y'all can get a full context.
to think he's hit a gold mine because he's smacked a few well-intentioned, most likely, but philosophically noobish vegans with it.
Not an argument against the valid critique of the moral double standard commonly perpetrated by vegans.
Today it's time to crush Pierre's dreams by showing how easily vegans can avoid his charge of hypocrisy for buying bread.
Isaac, that's too fucking funny, man. Thanks a lot for that. I really need a good laugh. I guess I'll have to crush your dreams and fully destroy your pathetic excuse of an argument.
Let's get into it. Okay, so the claim is that vegans are hypocrites for viewing stabbing as morally unjustified and industry deaths, in this case bread industry deaths, as morally justified.
Yes, dum-dum, that's the claim, more or less. And from this point forward, you're going to do your damnedest to reinforce that fallacious double standard. And then some.
If we agree the two scenarios, industry deaths and stabbing for burgers, are either justified or unjustified, we arrive at a tetrachotomy of positions.
9 seconds. It took you 9 seconds to vomit a metric fuck-ton of horseshit from that flaccid, jimmering bunghole you call a mouth. For those who didn't notice what Dum Dum here did, let me clue you in. First, he is making an appeal to emotions by way of emotive language, as well as committing the definist fallacy. he uses stabbing for burgers in reference to the manner in which animals are killed in industrialized agriculture to tug on your heartstrings. I say this because he juxtaposes that with the very clinical term industry deaths, which is just a blatant attempt to distance himself and the rest of vegans from the fact that countless sentient beings are in fact slaughtered for bread and other industrially produced wheat products. Which brings me to my second point. Isaac is setting up a false dichotomy to make you dipshit vegans feel better about yourselves. They're not mutually exclusive. Both kinds of deaths, in reality, come from the same industry, the agricultural industry. So technically, they are both industry deaths. However, Isaac needs this fallacious distinction because without it, his whole argument falls apart before he even started. Oh, and he even gave us a pretty picture he's painting with his craptastically apologetic narrative. Too bad it's full of shit, and he's trying to play hide the hypocrisy with it. Let's see. What do we got? Very bland, ain't it? It doesn't really suss out any emotional response on its own, and certainly doesn't match with what the fuck is coming out of Dum Dum's pie hole. So let's remove the fallaciously ambiguous nature of Fucknut's infograph and have it reflect the true nature of both these types of large-scale deaths from industrialized agriculture. We're going to keep this up to showcase the deception that Isaac's narrative is blatantly guilty of, and every time he tries to manipulate anyone with a bit of verbal sleight of hand, I'll switch it again to reveal the true nature of what he's trying to finagle you into believing.
Either both are justified, neither are justified, or one but not the other is justified. And of course, if you fall in different boxes, depending whether we're talking about humans or animals, this would have to be justified as consistent via name the trait.
Of course he's gonna drop his retarded baby, the NTT, in y'all's lap. However, keep in mind when and where he chooses to use it. This is supposed to be about vegans flippantly justifying the mass murder of innocent animals that did not want to die needlessly for the taste, pleasure, and convenience of said vegans. It's not about what the rest of the global population believes, and not about murdering humans. Since he brought it to the table, I'll gladly use it against him. Thanks, Dum Dum.
Now, none of these positions are necessarily logically inconsistent.
Seriously? None of them are morally inconsistent in the human context. Dingus, how exactly is needlessly stabbing another human in either scenario a consistent moral stance? Folks, Isaac himself has stated that he would not want to be bolt-gunned in the head for hamburgers. But for some strange reason, he believes needlessly murdering cognitively disabled and innocent infantile humans for his own personal pleasure is hunky-dory. 'Cause reasons. Dum Dum, you are the prime example of the bullshit double standard that Pierce Morgan was alluding to. And I have a distinct feeling that by the end of your video, we'll be right back here with you justifying not only the needless slaughter of animals for your taste pleasure, but an infinite holocaust of innocent humans as well. You sophist piece of shit.
But as I've said many times, I just task myself with showing the logical consequences of positions, then allow people to decide for themselves where they align.
The irony in that statement is priceless.
Top left says stabbing people is justified. Top right says stabbing people is justified, just don't you dare buy bread. The vast majority of people agree.
So, here is a sweet example of a bait and switch coupled with a magnificent display of misdirection, verbal sleight of hand, and epic level sophistry. Notice he changed stabbing animals for hamburgers, which he labeled simply stabbing deaths in his original infographic, to straight up stabbing people. And yet, for some strange reason, he didn't change industry deaths to cutting someone's head off for croissants or something along those lines. Nothing to see here, folks. We've been talking about stabbing people versus the innocuous and completely innocent act of eating bread the whole time. Yeah, that's not how that works, Dum Dum. We're just going to have to change the infographic once again to reflect the truth of what this piece of shit is spewing and what the fucktar is fallaciously omitting. Ah, that's better. Let me remind everybody that we're supposed to be talking about animals being killed in both aspects of the agriculture industry, not stabbing innocent humans for no apparent reason. But this asshole thinks y'all are too bow-tarded to notice. Dum Dum, do you think people are seriously this stupid? Or have you been huffing your own farts for so long you actually buy into your own bullshit and expect no one to notice the stench.
Agree with me that murder is unjustified, so I don't see much value in spending time attacking these top two positions, trying to convince some fringe minority of lunatics to abandon them.
Fucktard. The vast majority of people on this planet are not vegan, and de facto already do not agree with you in regards to killing animals for food. And your horrifically fallacious bait and switch doesn't change that. So, what fucking fringe minority of lunatics are you referring to? Stop being a deceitful little cunt and stop spreading stupid.
Bottom two positions agree that stabbing is unjustified, but differ on whether industry deaths are justified. Bottom right, which finds murder and industry deaths unjustified,
Abracadabra, presto, changeo! Now stabbing people has magically transformed into outright murder. That's an amazing metamorphosis. We went from stabbing animals for hamburgers to stabbing humans for no apparent reason to just plain old murder. And yet industry deaths, on his original infographic, mind you, which in reality is not the benign affair that Isaac is fallaciously attempting to portray it as, remains by some miracle unmolested by him. Isaac, close your legs, man. Your cognitive bias is showing. Time to once again change the infographic and expose this piece of shit. There, motherfucker. Now you can't just stand there and fucking lie to people. Vegans, serious question. Are y'all buying into this horseshit? I'm not, and I hope no one else listening to me is either.
and industry deaths unjustified can appear upon superficial analysis to be more virtuous than bottom left, where most vegans fall.
First off, how exactly is it superficial for a vegan to hold a morally consistent position that there is no trait absent in animals that justifies needlessly slaughtering them in either form of industry deaths? Oh wait, you're going to spin that into an apocalyptic narrative shortly, aren't you, fuckstick? Dum-dum, are you a mind reader? Have you acquired the magical ability to tap into the consciousness of every other vegan? No? Then don't assume one way or the other what every other vegan thinks or believes. I've been in the comment section of this video. From what I've observed, not every vegan is on board with your apologetic bullshit. That being said, what is it you claimed earlier? Oh yeah.
Of course, if you fall in different boxes, depending whether we're talking about humans or animals, this would have to be justified as consistent via namethetrait.
As far as I can tell, and from what you've been spewing so far, the only morally consistent position a vegan can take via the NTT is the very one you're about to fallaciously pretend leads to the end of the world as we know it. You've got to be the most absolutely retarded motherfucker I have ever encountered. And also, here's a term for you, and I'd love for you to understand this. It's called the bandwagon fallacy. Now, you're going to try to get people to agree with you. Now, you've already kind of started, and I'll go back over it again later on. But when you're sitting there telling people that no one's on board with what you're about to talk about, right? You just said, most vegans fall on under the bottom left-hand corner. I don't think you really understand that that's not how that works. And you just saying it doesn't change that.
Which is why carnists, who don't actually hold this position, love to assume this position purely for the purpose of attacking vegans.
That's what you think is happening? Nah, dum-dum. Pointing out the double standard of your position from your own moral system is not actually an adoption of the position itself. Stop spreading stupid.
Why can't you vegans go a little further and avoid buying bread so less innocent sentient beings are harmed?
And that's not an argument against the valid critique of the moral double standard commonly perpetrated by vegans, dum-dum. Try harder.
This position stops seeming as virtuous once you explore its logical consequences. If
Incoming apologetics level apocalyptic excuses ahead.
we set a moral standard by which bread production is unjustified, it's hard to understand how the production of other food would be justified. And if the production of something as essential to our survival as food isn't justified, then it's hard to understand how most of our other economic activity would be justified. If we set this moral standard, we'd be talking about obliterating modern civilization.
Who the fuck are you talking about? Serious question. We went from the fraction of a percent of the human population that comprise the totality of vegans on this planet, and their belief that it's immoral for non-vegans to kill animals for food, but they themselves have a double standard in that they don't believe it's wrong to needlessly murder sentient beings for their own personal pleasure, to obliterating human civilization. 'Cause vegans gotta have that bread, y'all. Dum-dum. That's not how that works, and you're being a disingenuous cunt for portraying it that way. Fucktard. Blatantly making an appeal to consequences via a slippery slope fallacy in order to justify having a moral double standard and trying to pull the wool over the eyes of other vegans in an attempt to convince them to do the same is just plain sophistry. Many religions and ideologies have precepts that dictate the abstinence of one thing or another in order to remain morally consistent. And yet the world, as humans know it, hasn't ended. We're talking about the relatively minuscule population of vegans adhering to their own ideology and being morally consistent within that ideology, and not to the rest of the fucking human race. So stop fallaciously conflating the two with a false equivalence and stop spreading stupid.
This view anti-civilizationalism. So the unpalatable consequences here become visible not simply from considering the effects of abandoning bread, but from considering the broader effects of the moral standard required to necessitate the abandonment of bread.
Dum-dum. Using apocalyptic rhetoric, which is nothing more than a fallacious scare tactic, doesn't make your bullshit excuse for having a double standard within your own ideology any less craptastic. Nor is it an argument against the valid critique of the vegan morals double standard. Stop spreading stupid.
Now, most people won't be able to get on board with the bottom right box because they have a strong conviction, rational or not, that civilization should be preserved. There are, however, people who would not be put off by the thought of losing civilization. For example,
Vegans not eating bread does not spell out the destruction of life as we know it. Stop spreading stupid.
Generally speaking, antinatalists and anarcho-primitivists would just bite the bullet and say, yep, modern civilization is morally unjustified. So I'll go...
Not an argument against the valid critique of the moral double standard commonly perpetrated by vegans, dum-dum. Try harder.
Go one step further and explain why anti-civilizationalism is at odds with a value many of us hold, the maximization of net well-being.
Oh, this should be fucking hilarious. Isaac is about to say some rock-bottom stupid. Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment and be a little more serious, especially to the vegans who are watching this video, and highlight once again the fact that Isaac has been manipulating you. What Isaac is doing is he's been utilizing, as I said before, verbal sleights of hand, as well as visual and verbal misdirections. During his video, he places this infographic up for you guys to look at as he speaks. So I'm going to ask you a few questions based off of that. First, you see how it says stabbing deaths on the left-hand side? What do you think that means? If your answer is murdering humans, why? Second, you see how it says industry deaths at the top? What do you think he means by that? If the answer isn't murdering humans, why not? Can you see the deception yet? From the beginning of my video, I switched out his infographic with one that represents reality just a little bit more to shed light on the bullshit he's been feeding you. Each time he's attempted to deceive y'all, another layer is removed, but the deception goes a little bit further than that. If I asked you what the overall topic that Isaac was speaking about, would it be killing animals in one aspect of the industrialized agriculture versus another aspect of the same industry? Or would it be murdering humans versus eating bread? Can you see the deception yet? The overall argument is supposed to be about animals being killed in one or another aspect of the same industry. So you'd figure that animals should have been the primary focus. However, they're not. Isaac only mentions animals about 3 or 4 times throughout the entire video. However, he mentions the clinical term industry deaths several times. As I mentioned before, this is merely a distraction. It's a misdirection from the truth. So this infographic reflects what's supposed to be talked about as opposed to what Isaac put up. But we don't really get to see that in his original video, and he does his best to avoid really talking about it. So that leads us to the next layer of deception in which Isaac changes stabbing animals for hamburgers to, of course, stabbing humans for no apparent reason. He doesn't change industry deaths to reflect killing animals one iota. So I did that for him, And now you have stabbing humans versus killing animals. And the only reason I can think of for Isaac's continued focus on harming humans is that he's using an appeal to emotion to keep you all from noticing that his use of industry deaths in reality means killing animals. And in this particular instance, vegans needlessly slaughtering those animals for baked goods. Of those options, where do you think you align as a vegan? I'm going to hazard a guess and say that it's probably the bottom right-hand corner. You probably don't think it's a good idea to stab human beings or kill animals. So sorry. According to Isaac, that's wrong think. You shouldn't believe that it's morally inconsistent to not stab humans and avoid killing animals needlessly. Isaac wants you to believe that it's okay and justifiable to unnecessarily slaughter animals in an infinite holocaust for reasons. Does that sound like a position you really want to hold as a vegan? Well, the deception doesn't stop there. It has yet another layer. Isaac switched stabbing humans to flat out murdering humans, and yet somehow didn't change industry deaths to reflect reality. You know, killing animals for bread. So once again, we had to do it for him. I ask you as a vegan, what position do you want to hold? Do you consider it wrong to murder human beings to turn them into a hamburger? Do you believe it's wrong to kill animals for something you know full well you can survive without, such as bread? Do you think they're both wrong? Do you think it would be consistent to believe that they're both morally wrong? Then I guess that puts you firmly in the bottom right-hand corner. Sorry, Isaac is telling you again that you're wrong for believing that, and the world will end because you believe that. Which means that the only position Isaac is allowing you to adopt is the bottom left-hand corner. That you have to believe it's wrong to murder human beings for hamburger, but it's okay to murder animals needlessly in an infinite holocaust for bread. Is that really, as a vegan, the position you want to take? Well, it just keeps getting worse. Isaac said it himself during the beginning of his own video.
Of course, if you fall in different boxes, depending whether we're talking about humans or animals, this would have to be justified as consistent via namethetrait.
So according to Isaac, this is all supposed to be applicable to either humans or animals. So that, unfortunately, leads us to the next logical step in his reasoning. A step that Isaac completely and absolutely omitted and definitely didn't want you to consider. Murdering humans for hamburger and murdering humans for bread. So may I ask you, vegans, once again, where do you line in this? Do you think it's wrong to murder a human being for bread? Do you believe it's wrong to murder human beings for hamburger? Do you believe it would be consistent to believe that both are equally wrong? Well then, that would put you squarely again at the bottom right-hand corner, wouldn't it? Isaac is telling you yet again that you're wrong for believing that. And because of your consistent belief, civilization as we know it will be obliterated. Only position that Isaac is allowing you to adopt is the bottom left-hand corner. Isaac wants you to believe that while it's wrong to murder human beings for hamburger, it's somehow okay to needlessly murder innocent humans in an infinite holocaust for bread. Is that really the position you want to be manipulated into believing?
The universe has a certain ambient well-being to suffering ratio.
So the universe has a certain ratio of comfort to hardship, and it's ever present, surrounding us like, I don't know, like the Force from Star Wars? Well, I guess the first question is, what's the ratio? You did say that there was a certain ratio. Then what is it? How did you measure it? And is it a percentage ratio or is it an odds ratio? The better question is, how do you know? You're making the claim that there is a specific ratio. How the fuck do you even know that in the first place? Let's be honest. You're attempting to make a fallaciously unfalsifiable assertion. You can't claim to know what's going on in the entirety of the universe, but you're going to assert that you do. And this ratio, whatever it is, exists even though you never actually give us the actual ratio. You just sit there and say that there is one without providing any evidence to support your assertion. I'd love to hear what it is. How do you know it exists in the first place? And how you went about measuring it. I know for a fact, you're never going to tell anyone. You don't actually give any information about it whatsoever in your video, other than your own preconceived notions. So for right now, we're going to use your childish notions of the universe, if only for the fact that we're going to be using it against you.
Lots of the universe is just empty space, and then where sentient life arises, there are beings experiencing positive and negative states. Most of this life is trapped in a suboptimal state by virtue of lacking the ability to meaningfully change the conditions in which it exists.
Again, dum-dum, how do you know? You keep running into those presupposed assertions without providing any evidence to support your claim. Isaac, you don't know, and you're just making shit up. Just like your world-ending apocalyptic visions. This is just one more layer of bullshit you're piling on. The problem with your reasoning is that you have no idea what it's like to be anything other than human. This is something that has stumped philosophers for thousands of years. You're never going to know what it's like to be a non-human, from a non-human perspective, as a non-human. Therefore, everything you're saying is just a massive amounts of assumptions, but that's fine. We'll go with it because you're just going to fuck yourself in the end with it.
Intelligent life, however, is a special case. Intelligent life has the potential to create circumstances for itself and others where well-being is far higher.
Well, there you have it, folks. It seems Isaac here has a problem with less intelligent sentient beings. By the way, suboptimal compared to what? Is it because of the fact they're less intelligent that they automatically live in a perpetual state of what you would consider suboptimal? Why, Isaac, that's very speciesist of you. For all you know, and for all anyone can know, some alien bug on a planet far, far away is living the ultimate state of being, so infinitely profound and awe-inspiring you could hardly recognize it. Hell, for all you know, that's exactly the case here on Earth for every other living organism, except humans. But of course that begs the question, Isaac. What do you consider an optimal state? I'm pretty sure you're going to say something, and it's going to be stupid. For now, I want to point out that Dum Dum here is pretty much said that less intelligent beings are inferior, and therefore are morally worthless because they lack intelligence and exist in what Dum Dum considers a suboptimal state.
On my view, it would clearly be morally wrong to limit our capacity to raise net well-being.
Isaac, whose well-being are you trying to raise? I have the distinct feeling that you're not talking about the well-being of animals or those you would consider less intelligent. You stated that intelligent beings are able to have higher well-being because...
So we shouldn't trap ourselves in a suboptimal state. If we abolish human civilization, we're certainly trapping ourselves in a suboptimal state.
There's that apocalyptic, end-of-the-world fear-mongering and fallacious appeal to emotions again. This time, vegans, he's appealing to your own sense of self-importance. You ought to be comfortable and happy and have a good life, right? Your personal comfort is the most important resource in the universe, right? Well then, eat bread and murder animals, because those stinking, filthy, less intelligent animals will never achieve Isaac's undefined optimal level of well-being. Dum Dum here is telling you that you can murder an infinite amount of animals, especially less intelligent animals, because their well-being doesn't stack up high enough to be on par with his or your personal pleasure.
Similar to the state in which non-human animals exist.
Told you.
If we allow for civilization, we can move towards raising net well-being in the universe.
Do you understand how ludicrous that sounds? Isaac, again you're telling people that murdering less intelligent animals is somehow a good thing because their ability to have well-being is of less moral value than you wanting to eat bread. Because stuffing your face with donuts makes you happy, and if your happiness is the most important thing in the universe, then who gives a fuck about the suffering of non-human animals? This kind of mirrors your moral value chart. Humans sit at the top of your moral value chart, so apparently now they sit on top of your well-being chart. What about suffering? That seems to be a talking point for vegans, right? How does that calculate into your narrative here? Does the suffering of those animals matter at all? How much animal suffering does it take before you say that it's probably not a good idea to eat bread? How many animals have to die before you say, no, we're not going to do that anymore? By your own reckoning, there is no trait absent in animals, which if absent in humans would deem humans morally valueless. If you really believe that, Isaac, if you truly believed in your own argument, you wouldn't have actually made this piece of shit of apologetic trash of a video that I'm now debunking. So Isaac, either you believe all animals are of moral value, or you don't. And even for the sake of argument you claim that only sentient animals are of moral value, then in that case either you believe all sentient animals have moral value, or you don't. From what you're saying in this video, you think that there should be an inequality of moral value based on intelligence and experiencing suboptimal states of well-being. Well, that pretty much means that according to you, the life and well-being of a non-human animal would forfeit because you want to eat bread and your personal comfort is the most important thing of all in all the universe.
Stacking up the wrongs humans do also doesn't really get you anywhere here, even if we go as far as to grant, for the sake of argument, the highly contentious point that human civilization currently generates a negative net impact on well-being. Because the universe will be around for so long that if we get our act together, we can tip our contribution vastly in the direction of maximizing well-being once sufficient time passes.
And now we've come to the final and last layer of Isaac's deception. Remember that according to Dum Dum, this is all supposed to be applicable to either humans or animals. But there's really only one way this is going to end up turning out. You know that, right? We're going to follow the logic all the way to its conclusion. A conclusion that Isaac completely, absolutely made sure to admit and definitely didn't want you to consider. Murdering humans for hamburgers versus murdering less intelligent humans for bread. Vegans, I'll ask you one final time. Where do you align in this? Do you think it's justifiable to murder an innocent human being for bread simply because they're less intelligent? Do you believe it's wrong to murder a human being for hamburger? Do you believe it would be consistent to believe that both are equally wrong? If so, then that would put you squarely at the bottom right-hand box. Right? Sorry. Isaac is telling you, again, that you're wrong for believing that. And because of your consistent belief, not only would human civilization as we know it be obliterated, but Dum Dum here is telling you you can murder an infinite amount of less intelligent humans because their well-being doesn't stack up high enough to be on par with your own personal pleasure. Which means that the only position Isaac is allowing you to adopt is the bottom left-hand corner. Isaac wants you to believe that it's wrong to murder human beings for hamburger, yet it's somehow morally justified to needlessly murder innocent, less intelligent human beings in an infinite holocaust for bread. Is that really the position you want to be manipulated and deceived into believing by the sophist piece of garbage, Isaac Brown?
So we can say by process of elimination that if you don't align with a moral system that justifies stabbing people, such as the top two boxes, or one that mandates abolishing modern civilization, thereby permanently trapping humanity in a radically suboptimal state, such as the bottom right box, that you can place yourself in the bottom left box until some extremely unpalatable consequence of being in said box is made clear to you.
I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. I fear something terrible has happened.